Welcome to our presentation. We are Max, Radoslav, Eleonora, Brian, and Vlad. And we are here to, as the board members of Demos Motors, to introduce you to our efforts and goals to meet our sustainable business vision for the next 7 years. As we know, companies worldwide have been putting efforts to change their business models and value chain in order to meet a net zero target by 2050. And as companies and governments strive to tackle more than one of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so is Demos Motors. And regarding this, here are the topics that we will discuss in this presentation. First, we will give an introduction of the values and mission of Demos Motors. And with that, we will set 4 big hairy audacious goals. And then next, a vivid description of the future that is based on these goals. Moving forward, a baseline analysis on our value supply chain. From that, top 10 prioritized ideas on how to improve our sustainable strategy. Moving forward, a 7-year implementation plan. Before starting to talk about our plans for the future, it is important to mention that what we stand for as a company. So our core values and vision, and these are what drive our every move. And first, our core values. We have the values of safety, quality, affordability, and sustainability, which are also at the basis of our strategy, but all these values are always supported by constant technological improvement in order to be more efficient as time moves forward. As there are new trends regarding this. Our core purpose, however, is to build the best vehicles, of course, and create coastal values not only for customers, but also for our employees. So values for every shareholder. And our mission is to deliver top-of-the-range vehicles regarding quality and safety, as mentioned before, for a more responsible automotive industry from start to end. So following our values as a company, we set 4 big, audacious, hairy goals to follow and to give us the type of urgency and energy in order to work towards our action plan. And the goals are to enable the shift to AV-only vehicles by 2030, which are automated with only clean and renewable energy use, so wind and solar or more. That will be developed. Make sure that there are no unethical practices involved in the value chain for our cars from beginning to end. Make charging stations universally available, also connected to the first goal. And the fourth goal is to grant a living wage or above to all parties involved in the production of our vehicles, from raw material suppliers, so from the beginning of our value chain, to dealers, so from the very end. And these goals are the framework to reach our ideal future, where each and every one of our activities in our value chain are carried with attention to people, to sustainability, so overall society welfare. And we want to continue to generate profit and long-term value, but at the same time improving societal and environmental conditions. And as a quote, we could say that we want to ensure a more sustainable and clean automotive industry holistically. So be the leader in that. And now on to Brian with the baseline analysis.
Yes, now I'll be discussing the baseline analysis table. When trying to come up with the baseline activities, our group had looked into the most common practices that go into the car manufacturing process and simplified it down to 20 value chain activities. To narrow it down even more, we chose 10 activities from the 20 that were the most relevant and susceptible for improvements. These 10 were the lithium ore extraction, labor and raw material extraction, transportation of necessary materials, car safety, car production, focus on fossil fuel cars instead of electrical vehicles, not recycling the cars after usage, electrical usage in the manufacturing locations, unused excess production waste, and lastly, the infrastructure and expansion of the company itself. Next, I'll be discussing the importance matrix table. So the importance matrix table was made by organizing the value chain activities depending on the likelihood and severity or consequence of the activity. From the 7 most intolerable risks, so the ones in red, 2 have been chosen to be discussed in more detail. These 2 are the car production and the lithium ore extraction. So when it comes to the car production, it was chosen because the input and output processes require large amounts of energy, and the impact is also very severe as it causes damage to the air, as the whole process increases GHG emissions and releases large quantities of harmful gas. When it comes to the lithium ore extraction, it was chosen because it is also highly likely and severe, especially as it is required to be done for the manufacturing of our electrical vehicles. The input takes a lot of effort and the output damages the environment, inducing biodiversity destruction, erosion of soil and water, and solid contamination. These are the main reasons that we chose these 2 activities. And in the next slide, Vlad will be discussing the improvements of the processes.
Okay, so we choose here we chose 10 improvements for our value chain activities. So first of them is the lithium ore extraction. We chose to develop more sustainable batteries and replace the lithium-ion batteries. Second one is the labor condition in raw material extraction. We want to enforce regulations of labor conditions. Third one is transportation of necessary materials. We want to use electric vehicles for transportation where possible and to hire transport companies which are sustainable. We want to improve car safety by investing in car safety development. The fifth one is car production energy consumption. We want to improve this by investing in solar panels and other sources of renewable energy for our facilities in order to match the electricity demand. The sixth one is focus on fossil fuel cars instead of AEVs. We want to invest in the development of more alternative energy vehicle models. Seventh one is not recycling the cars at the end of their life cycle. In order to improve this, we want to implement a recycling plan through which we can recycle the old, more pollutive vehicles of our customers and give them a discount for a brand new vehicle in exchange. The eighth one is electrical usage in our facilities. In order to improve this, we want to raise awareness among employees by organizing workshops and also implement motion sensors in our facilities. We also want to improve the unused excess production waste by recycling spare raw materials. And finally, the last one is infrastructure expansion of the company. We're going to improve this by buying already existing facilities instead of building them from the ground up. All right, next is Radoslav.
Lastly, we developed 7-year implementation plan. While this is only a rough plan showing the main task which needs to be done, it's not specific, and in the future it needs to be developed more specifically in order to have a much clearer vision. So firstly, we wanted to develop more sustainable batteries, and this starts with researching new battery technology. And due to its complexity, we assume it would take up to 5 years. And after the research is hopefully successful, we would be able to develop superior and more sustainable batteries. This would require quite large investment, and therefore the return on investment would come only later in the future when the battery would be implemented. The second action, we wanted to enforce regulation of labor condition. And once again, this starts with researching the supplier network in order to be able to determine what are the main problems in the network and what needs to be improved. We would like to collaborate with suppliers which require transparency. This would, at the beginning, probably cost more since we would need to switch to different suppliers, but at the end we would ensure ethical sustainable supply chain, which is of very high value. Thirdly, we would like to research less carbon intensive logistic networks and hire transport companies which are sustainable. This is very similar to Action 2. So firstly, we start with researching what are the problems and what are the drawbacks. Secondly, we would switch to more efficient modes of transport if we would be able to find those. And lastly, there is a transition period to electric, hydrogen, or other alternative energy vehicles, which would ensure, again, sustainability within our supply chain. Lastly, we wanted to invest in safety of our cars. So this is quite simple. It starts with investments and later with implementation of the developments. At the beginning, this would require quite a big sums of money, but due to the fact that safer cars are usually more durable because of their safety, the return on investment would be there since we assume that the life cycle would increase as well with the cars.
Right. The next plan is to invest in renewable energy for our facilities. In order to do this, we will first install solar panels on the roofs of our offices and factories. This is not likely to fulfill all of our energy needs, so we will need to arrange partnerships with local producers of sustainable energy. This is likely to cost a little bit more on the short term, but in the long term, everyone needs to make the transition sometime, and we think by doing this sooner than later, this will save us trouble in the long term, and also it might attract subsidies from local government, which help to ease costs. The next plan is to invest in the development of more alternative energy vehicle models. In order to do this, we will slowly or gradually allocate more research and development funding to AEV projects, and we will use this extra funding to develop a larger quantity of alternative energy vehicles so that customers have more choice. This is also projected to cost a little bit more on the short term, as we simply choose to allocate to spend more money on research and development. But in the long term, we think that this might help us win a larger market share and will lead to higher revenue and hopefully higher profits as well in the future. The next plan is to implement a recycling plan in which customers can trade in their old vehicles in exchange for a discount for a new car. And this is quite an ambitious plan. First, we need to set up recycling and scrapping supply chain for a large variety of different old cars. In order to do this, we also need to develop a way to quickly and accurately estimate how much any old car is really worth in order to prevent us from making losses on compensating consumers too much for their old cars. We need to hire employees and also start operations, expand to new locations over the country in order to be able to recycle more vehicles. And of course, we need to adapt to the needs of the market. The next plan is to raise awareness among employees about saving energy and to install motion-activated light sensors in the facilities. We will first install more light sensors in the company facilities. This is likely to take a few years before they have replaced all of the regular light switches. But then they are projected to save some energy costs as we will use less energy. And we also plan to do an information campaign for our employees about how to save energy in the office and workplace. The next plan is to recycle spare raw materials by monitoring and reducing waste from our manufacturing process, and to create partnerships with recycling and waste management companies who can more sustainably handle our waste and recycle it. This is also expected to cost a little bit more on the short run, but might also attract subsidies, and it will be good for us to recycle and to contribute to a more sustainable industry. And lastly, we will be repurposing existing non or underutilized buildings and infrastructure for our manufacturing infrastructure. And to do this, we will first buy up abandoned properties and hire contractors to renovate them. And then we will use them to expand into these properties or to sell or lease them to other companies in order to make extra revenue and profit on these properties. And that is our presentation. We thank you for paying attention, and